Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate all of you panelists for being here today. Mr. Chen, when we consider regulations, do you know or do you consider that there are regulations that are disincentivizing private industry investment in sustainable transportation R&D?
I'm not aware of any regulation per se. Do you have a particular example of?
I'm asking you to see. I mean, this is the area you're going to be more familiar than I am. So it's pristine, is what you're indicating.
Well, there certainly are programs out there that encourage the adoption of alternative transportation option technologies. So, and as I mentioned to the other congressman, with respect to things like rolling back CAFE and the greenhouse gas regulation, those are exactly the wrong signals. Government has always had a role to lead on innovation in areas of technology improvement, whether it be through emissions or safety.
But what I'm trying to get at is, and if I'm understanding you, I'm trying to find out if there's any kind of government regulations that's actually impeding private sector development. And you said no, I think, is what you told me.
Not exactly. There are certain areas of regulation that do have us locked into existing technologies versus allowing us to foster other developments.
And that's what I would like to know more about. And before we run out of time, I'd ask if maybe, if that's the case, if you can either get together with me or my staff or shoot me a memo or something like that, whatever, in the areas that you think have locked us in.
Yes, absolutely. I can do that.
I appreciate that. So sustainability within the transportation sector is a reasonable goal, but this issue ought to be, in my opinion, championed by private sector, not the federal government, which is why I'm concerned with the legislation we're exploring today. The Vehicle Innovation Act authorizes appropriations of more than $1.6 billion over 5 years for our research, development, engineering, demonstration, and commercial application of vehicles and related technologies in the United States, which, interestingly enough, is roughly the amount of private equity investment in Rivian Company, as reported in Mr. Chen's his written statement. This sounds like an exciting opportunity for the transportation industry, but we have to be cognizant of the federal budget constraints facing our country. And so I just want to cover two quick points before I leave here today. The question that I always ask myself is it appropriate for the government to transfer dollars taken by compulsion, which is what we do. When we tax, we are taking dollars by compulsion. There's nobody here that volunteers to do it. Every time we try to have a volunteer taxation program, it fails miserably. So we have to compel it. Should we take that compulsorily gained taxation and provide it to private companies and entrepreneurs to conduct research and development, even if it might provide a goal, an overall good? Now, some economists would argue that such transfers from government to private sector researchers incentivizes inefficiencies, suppresses private equity investment, and creates a path-dependent or increasing return regime that locks research development industry onto a suboptimal path that inhibits movement to the most optimal paths of research and development. Several of you have mentioned today China, and I think we should always respect China has literally spent billions and tens of billions of dollars researching into these areas. But we must also understand and make no mistake, China is a centralized authoritarian nation. They control the money, they control the economy. The leader of that nation, or if you decide that you think there's oligarchs running that nation, those leaders can seize and divest capital from market-driven priorities into government-sponsored priorities. We're competing with that. I recognize we're competing with that. But we have always believed in this nation that a system of freedom of markets will produce innovation, and that will be a more nimble and quick approach and response, and actually be better in the long run. So for me, I look at it and I say, this is an interesting dilemma that we're always in. Do we take this money away from private individuals and transfer to researchers and engineers who are on the cutting edge? There's no doubt you're on the cutting edge of technology. That is what I wonder about. I think about that often. And I think you can surmise where I come out, and with that, my time has expired. Thank you.